Welcome to Radar Show, a digital platform hosted by Champions of Peace to provide a digital platform for online and offline viewers on issues to do with peace and security, mental health, gender issues, youth and governance. And the reasons why we are doing this, a lot of people nationally and internationally are relying on the digital spaces to get information. And some of those information are distorted. And therefore, this platform provides an ample opportunity for various professional panelists to provide insights on different thematic areas. So today, our second series, we have our able panelists. On my far right, we have Janet P. Anyango, Deputy Executive Director for Fure, Kenya. Welcome, Janet, to the show. And congratulations to your appointment as the Deputy.
Thank you so much.
At the center, we have Beatrice Njeri, Senior Litigation Counsel at the Center for Rights Education in Kenya. Karibu, Beatrice.
Asante.
Today, we are discussing issues to do with prevention of violence against women and girls in Kenya. And the discussion we want to have is on femicide. From December up to now is a national discussion, which requires a robust and candid discussion and to provide a roadmap for remedy. Number two, we also want to discuss the issues to do with murder of women in the rural areas. What is pushing this targeted murder of women in the rural areas? Then the third part is what are the issues as part of redress, both from non-state and state actors. So to start us off, I want to start with you, Janet. Femicide. Are you happy with the statistics?
Well, thank you so much, Eli, for inviting us to this conversation today.
Yes.
On behalf of Fure Kenya, we have strongly come out and done statements. We have done media briefs about our displeasure with the rising number of cases of femicide in this country. It is our constitutional right to be protected. We have a right to life. Article 26 guarantees every citizen in this country a right to life. But we are seeing a trend whereby young women, older women, girls are being targeted. And for us, we are saying that this is it's gender-based violence. We are being targeted just because we are women. And we need to understand what exactly are the root causes of this. We need to really be a society that stands up for each other, you know, such that when these cases are happening, can we just stop blaming the victims? Can we stop shaming them? Can we give a safe space for them to report? So I know we are going to have a robust conversation about this,
Yes.
but for now we are extremely sad. We have expressed our displeasure. We have called upon the government and non-state actors to all join efforts into this conversation here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Janet. Beatrice, you are working in an organization mandated to increase advocacy.
Yes.
Why do you think the government is mum? And few people are talking, like Fure, your organization, Mind the Lawyer, and few. Why are people mum? While women are being killed in our villages, young people are being killed, murdered in residential houses.
Let's begin from the point of saying that this is not the first time as women of Kenya we are having this conversation around femicide. In 2019, we had a similar and big protest, conversation, robust discussion with the government, with non-state actors. Everyone was involved in that conversation to condemn the rate of femicide that had risen as at that time. However, I tend to think that we are a very forgetful nation. We get carried away by other things. And so in the last week or so, we have seen government actors come out to condemn strongly the femicide cases happening. But what we are keen to see is the sustainability of the action.
Yeah.
One of the challenges we have had is the rate of cases in court. We remember the case of Ivy Wangeshi, who was a victim of femicide. She was murdered, and her family was pursuing the case in court for years before they got justice. And even when the sentence was issued, it was not satisfactory to the family, as they said, for the pain they had endured all through those years and the journey they had gone through the court. For them, I can congratulate them for being strong enough to pursue that journey. However, I think the government needs to do more. We need to see more from the state actors, because they're the ones who have the responsibility to end violence against women in Kenya. And we will not relent until we see that form of accountability and strong action coming from the government. Let's not trivialize women's issues, because that is what happens. So the activists will protest. FIDA and Crew Kenya and all other women of Kenya organizations, community members will all protest against violence against women, but the conversation might just die down there. As long as there's no sustained quest for accountability, the government falls back, and we are calling on them to act towards prevention of femicide, towards prevention of violence against women, because they have an obligation to do that under international law and also under our constitution and other national laws.
Absolutely. Under the 2010 constitution provides an elaborate framework to protect human rights, irrespective of being a woman, a child, a man. Janet, what do you think are the push factors which make our women and girls vulnerable?
Well, I would say that for femicide, it's just an opportunistic trend that we are seeing, because we are seeing young girls being lured into their assailants, I would say arms, literally, because from the trend we are seeing people who are earning your trust, you know, and then in those private spaces, in the most vulnerable of your spaces, they take advantage and hurt you. So what we are saying is that it is highly opportunistic, and we need to ask ourselves what exactly is causing this, because we don't want people to be excused or rather people not to take action not to take responsibility, for their actions. So we are saying that whatever happens, we have to protect the right to life. We cannot curtail women's rights to associate with people the way they want, or associate in whatever spaces. We've seen instances where some of these women met their assailants in dating sites, or rather in the internet space. So for us, it's more about how safe can we make those dating sites, because we've had instances where people have fake accounts in dating sites, for example, or people create fake accounts and they will just want to pose like they're someone who is interested in a relationship. So we are saying that we can't curtail women from associating, or rather from meeting people in whatever spaces they want to, or young girls. But then how safe can those spaces be? How can the government ensure better regulation for those kind of spaces? Because how would someone just create a fake account, for instance? So how accountable can the government make those spaces that before you register, we are actually able to trace and know that this is Janet, this is my image, these are my fingerprints, this is where I am found, this is where I live, and all that. Apart from that, I would say that there's also a lot of cultural things that are then at play. There's patriarchy being manifested clearly, because we had acknowledged that from the statistics we are seeing also a trend of older women being targeted. So like why would anyone want to rape an older woman, or why would they want to just kill her? Why would someone who's lived in your society her entire life all of a sudden become a witch, for example? We've seen the trend, what is happening in Kisii, Nyamira County, where older women are being targeted and they're being killed, some even in open broad daylight, they're being lynched. So why are we not having conversations about
Yes.
these stereotypical behaviors, or rather just the patriarchal norms that are then perpetuating this kind of violence? Because for the cases in Kisii and Nyamira, when you look at them deeply, and that's why we are saying it's time we interrogate the root causes of this violence, you find that some are even attached to land rights, you know, that people just still believe in this age and era that women are not allowed to inherit property. So it's high time we have that conversation. And then, of course, just for crafting measures around prevention.
Absolutely.
You know, that let's advocate more to prevent this sort of violence. And it will happen if we have honest conversations, if we interrogate the root causes, if we allow women to share their lived realities. Because I have seen a lot of trends in social media of late of now women coming out slowly and still cagey, you know, because we are shaming them. We are saying, why did you find yourself in that? That is not the kind of conversation to have now.
Yes.
The conversation is that, why is this happening and what should we do to prevent, you know, so that we don't have all these patterns of cases. Yeah.
Thank you, Janet. So very, very, very critical issues you are bringing across. Number one is patriarchal nature of our society. Not only African society, even in the West. When you look at the composition of the UN Security Council, is a male-dominated. And therefore, we cannot use patriarchal nature of society as an excuse to really belittle women and girls in our society. So, Beatrice, Janet has talked about vulnerability. Do you think our girls and women are more aware of dangers of digital security, safety in the digital spaces? Because those guys in the digital space are taking advantage of our ignorance. Do you think there's an awareness?
I will answer your question in two ways.
Yes.
To begin with, of course, there is not much awareness on the part of girls. Some of them are just looking for a partner. They're looking for love, genuine love, just the same way any other human being would desire to be loved and to have a partner. Some of them have other push factors that have led them to be more vulnerable to being lured into, you know, lucrative money or whatever it is that they have been desiring because of the other factors: poverty, lack of education. Perhaps these are victims of sexual violence or other forms of violence against women that have led them to pursue whatever it is. However, I don't think being in a dating site is wrong, because it is not only women who are in those dating sites.
Yes.
Those dating sites belong to men and women. It is not wrong for a human being to pursue love. How then should looking for love in a dating site that has both men and women lead to the death of women only? I think it is education is lacking for both women and men. And I say even more for men, because whenever we speak about violence against women, it is pushed as a women's issue. However, it is the men who are perpetrating the violence.
Absolutely.
So I would frame it as men's violence against women. It is the men who are killing women. So if it is, for me, I can do all I want to protect women. However, for as long as men hate women, they will always kill them.
Absolutely.
So for me, education is needed more for men to have these conversations among themselves, to tackle the issues that Janet was speaking to earlier about gender stereotypes. A woman should be like this, a woman should not be like this, they should dress like this, they shouldn't. Those are things that have been overtaken by time. However, those harmful stereotypes, social norms are the ones that are still driving men to perpetrate violence against women, to kill women, to batter women. You could even be doing the most womanly thing, like the woman who was killed cooking ugali in her house. Was she in a dating site? No. She was doing the most gendered role that she should be doing. However, as a woman, you are not safe anywhere. You could be killed when in a dating site, you could be killed when cooking ugali in your house, when anything happens to a woman. So for me, the education is more for the men, and they should take up that role to re-educate themselves on the root causes, and that the gender stereotypes, the harmful social norms that they have been having, those backward cultural notions that they have should end. For example, if we talk about elderly women, I tend to think that the reason they are being targeted, in addition to the land rights and all that, is because they are no longer of any use to men, because they are past their reproductive age. So these women are not appealing to the men. They are of no use to them sexually, because men feel entitled to women's bodies. So because they have lost that appeal by time, they are not going to give birth. They are probably now relying more on society to help them with their everyday role. Then for men, they feel like a burden, so why not eliminate them? So for me, the education rests on the men. They need to do more, even as we try to do more awareness on the girls. We could try to speak about all the ways a woman could keep herself safe, but she will still be attacked, she will still be violated.
Well put, Beatrice. Janet, Beatrice has mentioned something very critical, that this violence is violence, men perpetuating violence to women. What is the role of men into this discourse as we want to front advocacy strategies to prevent women and girls? The role of men. And we acknowledge the national strategy for gender sector working group. They have added the men pillar into this kind of engagement. How useful will it be?
Yeah. So thank you, Ellie. And I think for a long time, when we've had these conversations about gender, there's always that attempt, or rather it seems to lean more towards women. So when anybody hears gender, they think it's a women's affair. And as Beatrice has rightly put it, it's not a women's affair. You know, gender means men and women. So I was particularly excited when the intergovernmental framework that coordinates gender responsiveness in counties, what we are calling the gender sector working groups, have decided to put a fifth thematic area of male inclusion, you know, in the advocacy we've been doing around women leadership, peace and security, women empowerment, and also the issues around gender-based violence. So it is very intentional to then bring men into these conversations. And I know we've done a lot of work towards recruiting male champions, you know, in the outfits we work with, in the community-based organizations, paralegals, women rights defenders. So I believe that, just as Beatrice says, let's focus more on the prevention. So the advocacy around prevention is that, one, we are bringing these men to be at the forefront. So part of it is also just talking about mental health, you know, because I feel that there's a gap in terms of people just accepting rejection. You know, that's why we are saying that as women, if I'm approached by a man and I say no, can that no mean no? And you know, now we are having conversations about people who are dead, and I'm just wondering, there's so many cases that we are doing of rape, defilement, attempted rape, and even sexual harassment. It starts from that part where somebody is not able to accept rejection, you know. And I am using the strong term rejection, but that is what it is.
Yes,
if I don't like you, I don't like you. If you don't like me, you don't like me. And let's just move on. Come on. You know, so part of it is, how do you handle rejection? You may genuinely like someone, but if they don't feel your vibe, please move on. Yeah. So then also, as what Beatrice has said, there are certain things that could have then been as a result of our socialization or how somebody was raised. And if you discover it's a problem, then you need to seek help, you know. That's why now I feel that we need to really integrate the mental health aspect of it, you know, the psychosocial support, and the fact that if you are having a problem around not knowing how to handle a no, or just some, I will just call them sexual fantasies or fetishes, then you can actually get help, because there's a way that can be addressed. So I will just add my voice to call the men to come out and speak out. Please share your experiences as well, because probably they are not talking, but I believe if we address those things that we are calling stereotypes, we are calling gender stereotypes, because also men have been cultured to keep silent, you know, that when you speak out, you're not man enough.
It's true.
That is not acceptable in this age and era. And also, just keep saying that when someone comes out, let's support them, let's not shame them. You know, there's been so many good steps that we've seen, like the police service now are more receptive. Though of course we've also had some of them who are not that receptive, because when the Matara case came out, I saw women saying that we have reported this man before, sorry, and not much has been done towards even investigation, you know, or even apprehending them. So there could be certain people in the police service that are yet to really up their game, but I know the functional gender desks have really learned that you cannot victim shame anymore. Listen, support these victims, because we are now moving towards a victim-centered approach. It's not just about that perpetrator, it's also about the victim and their family.
Absolutely. Beatrice, just following up on Janet's, what are the other strategies we can use to prevent all this? Men, predominantly, we don't shy away from talking. And that's why when the worst comes to the worst, we do things which at the end we regret. What do you think, what should be done, especially to men? Because it's violence, it's men perpetrating
against women. I will not say what I think should be done to men. I have ideas that might be a bit on the extreme end. However,
this is an open space. Open space.
Okay, let me start from the point where we include all actors, state and non-state actors. So categorizing men as non-state actors, because most of the people, when they hear non-state actors, they think about NGOs, CBOs, rights organizations, other forms of organizations, feminists in Kenya, you know, all these people who are organizing collectively against an issue. However, non-state actors also includes me and you. What are we doing in our private spaces? I have seen men, especially in the wake of suicide, in the wake of femicide, come out strongly to speak against it, to condemn it, to have candid conversations among themselves. I have seen a generation of younger men who are doing it, perhaps men in their 30s to 40s bracket, and that is a fantastic opportunity that I would also encourage other men to participate in. Go to those forums where men have organized, have a candid conversations among yourselves, so that you interrogate all those reasons that you list for violating women. Are they truly valid? And if you are a perpetrator because you were born in a home where violence was normal to you, then if you go to a forum of that nature, you're able to know that violence against women is not normal as you have normalized it in your home. You might not just be aware because you grew up seeing your mother being beaten or your sisters being beaten, your sisters being violated, and that you have a role in speaking out against it. And that if you truly have those that very archaic reasoning, then you have a mental health space, a safe space where you could interrogate your beliefs and start to learn to change. Because if we know something is wrong, then once we have the knowledge, we aim to do better to stop those behaviors. So that is what I would say as far as men are concerned and what they could do. Find those spaces where there is male inclusion, male engagement, all those conversations that are happening. Educate yourself. There is so much information that is online around femicide put together in country-specific contexts. There is so much information. honestly, that you have no excuse in this day and age as a man to be violating a woman in the form of I am not aware. There is so many, even community radio stations are having these conversations. The conversations are on Facebook. They are everywhere. Excuse me, they are everywhere. So the reach of information is there, and it is up to them to also take initiative. Because if you're saying, then I will, the way they say it is, I will protect my mother, my wife, my sister, but protect women because they are human beings.
Absolutely.
Just the same way you don't want to be violated as a human being, not because they are a lesser being.
Thank you. That's a good way to conclude it. Men should protect their mothers, their sisters, their cousins, because these women are their mothers, their sisters, and so they are even our wives, they are our lovers, our best mates. Janet, 2010 Constitution has been proclaimed as one of the progressive documents in the entire world. What are still the gaps, legal gaps, which try to perpetuate this violence? Are people taking advantage of certain legal gaps?
Well, so indeed the Constitution is very progressive, and for us in civil society, we are more excited about our Article 2 that allows us to highly rely on international law, treaties, conventions that have been signed and ratified by Kenya. So for us, we say that this gives us then an avenue to do a lot of advocacy on how better to protect women and girls. And then our Constitution also gives very protective provisions. You know, like the right to access justice is a right enshrined within the Constitution.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But then the reality of it becomes what I like to call a mirage, you know, like it's not even attainable yet. Because, for instance, now we have all these cases that have been reported. So as the government, the first responsibility would then be assign counsel for the family to ensure that they are able to give support to the victim's family, just being given legal information about what their case is about, just preparing them, you know, the government giving even a safe space, because these people even need to step out of their environment to even just recover. If you saw the Resambu case, the family requested us to just give them some time to mourn their child, you know. So in that space, and they would fault the government, yes, and still say the government failed us. But then even as the government failed them, I feel that there's still an opportunity for the government to ensure redress to the family. So what does this redress look like? That first, the police service and the investigations are able to do proper, thorough investigation, and just to be able to bring these perpetrators to book. Then as they present themselves in court, I have seen now the judiciary has even made a step to give what we are calling specialized courts that are going to be listening to these gender-based violence cases. Initially, the idea was just around the sexual gender-based violence cases, but there's conversations around making it a gender justice court such that these kind of cases can also be fast-tracked there, because the survivors are saying they are tired, and they're tired. So there's a lot of gaps. In as much as we have the National Legal Aid Act that then gives that assurance that, you know what, you'll get counsel for free. I think it's high time in this country we make preventive services for women what we are calling essential service. That in the event that there are these kind of cases, you must be given a lawyer as a matter of right, like an emergency. The same way we treat, or rather we want to subject women to the treatment, the medical treatment. Let us prioritize their humanitarian needs, you know, their mental health needs. Let's prioritize as we run through the trial, yeah? And this is what we are trying to call the victim-centeredness, you know. It's not about just the perpetrator. It's not about trying to find where is this person who did this and subjecting them to the criminal process. But even as this happens, I still feel that our laws are not at the point where you are able to give effective remedy. I remember you said that we can talk about the right to remedy.
Yes.
Because remedy means that, you know what, we want to correct the wrong.
Yes.
So correcting the wrong in our system most of the time has been to bring the perpetrator to book, and that's it. In fact, in most cases, we've given you compensation, that's it. That's not sufficient, you know. So let us find out what the family feels that if that happens, then they would have closure. I like to call it closure, but it's not easy. It's not easy to lose a family member out of this kind of circumstances. It's not easy, and I really feel for the families of the victims so far. And I also just take this opportunity to pass my condolences and to say that for us as an organization, we are very ready to support them through the process when they are ready to get through the criminal trial and just get justice for them. But at the end of the day, it's also for the government to really integrate what an effective remedy really looks like in the eyes of these victims' families. Yeah, so there's a lot of gap in that.
Thank you. Thank you, Janet, for your elaborate explanation. Beatrice.
And for me, I would say the gaps in the national laws.
Yeah.
What also needs to be amplified is, I think we should head to a situation where we are having femicide classified as a different crime altogether. Because when it gets lumped up in homicide and other usual murders, not to say the death of any human being is more or less than the other. But however, if we classify femicide as a different offense, we are able to go to the root causes.
That's true.
We are able to have a conversation with the victims and see what would a remedy look like in the instance of femicide, and then continue the conversation in that way. So for me, around the government, more needs to be done around data, around reclassification, and around sustaining the advocacy efforts, because we cannot leave it to non-state actors to be continuing with the advocacy and only join hands or chime in when the conversation is hot. So we will have the protest on 27th March, and then after that, what will happen? How do we have sustained, consistent conversations, but that have an end point on prevention and that better response, as Janet was talking from the ends of course.
Well put, Beatrice.
Let's work together. Let's join forces, and the community support. What we are saying is that in the Matara case, we were seeing someone literally getting out of a lift, people looking at him suspiciously, like there could be something wrong, but nobody is doing anything. So let's be each other's keepers.
How do you bring cohesion among the diverse stakeholders in pushing for one agenda? For this case, this issue.
Okay. Thank you, Ellie, for that. I think we do not need to reinvent the wheel. There is already so much progress that has been made in terms of multi-sectoral gender working groups. I think there have been forms of organizing that have taken that approach. And for example, the community work that we do, the advocacy work that we do, has targeted various members of society as the way society is constituted. So we will bring together all the people you mentioned to have a conversation. We will have it together. We will also have it separately, so that we then go to the religious leaders and see, in your view, how are you having these discussions in your churches, in your mosques, in the places of worship where you meet? How are you having conversations around violence against women within that space? How are other members of society organizing? If there are community champions, people who are opinion shapers and opinion leaders within the community, whether it's men elders or those forms of organizing, how are they discussing those in the platforms that they have whenever they're doing their activities? Is gender-based violence part of the conversations that they have with the members that they have? Are women in chamas, in their other forums that they are organizing, having these conversations? When youth groups meet to swim or whatever it is, leisure activities that they have during the weekends, and any forums that they're meeting, they're having a hike, do they take 5 minutes to discuss a community? Yet we know. And as Janet was speaking, I think in urban areas the living is more individualized, such that even if I hear screams in my neighbors are each other's, we should be each other's keepers. So I think it is allowed to mind the business of your neighbor.
Issues which necessarily are being put into content to be used and to be viewed after different sessions. So today we have a high-level panelists who humbly accepted to be in this under the tree. You make it more local, as our theme is amplifying local voices. Janet and Fida as one of the greatest voices in the country in terms of legal and issues with women. And the crew, when it comes to advocacy, they have been very, very in the front line.